Heavenly Stories.
Abraham, a man of profound faith, had lived a long and eventful life. God had made a covenant with him, promising to make his descendants a great nation and to bless him with a son. After years of waiting, Abraham and his wife, Sarah, were blessed with a child in their old age. They named him Isaac, a name that meant laughter, for he was the source of their greatest joy and the living embodiment of God's promise. Isaac was a symbol of hope, the heir to all that Abraham had and the future of the great nation that God had foretold. As Isaac grew, so did the love and devotion Abraham had for his son. Isaac was more than just a child, he was the fulfillment of a divine promise, a miracle in human form. Their bond was unbreakable, built on years of shared life and the understanding that Isaac's existence was a direct result of God's grace. Abraham's life had revolved around this promise, this single, cherished son. But then, one day, the unthinkable happened. God's voice, which had guided and promised so much, spoke to Abraham with a command that would shatter his world. Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. The command was a contradiction of everything Abraham had come to know. How could the God of promise and life ask for the life of the very son who was the fulfillment of that promise? How could the God of love demand such a horrific act from a devoted father? The command was not just a test of faith, it was a profound crisis of belief. It was a choice between the word of God and the deepest human instinct, the love for one's child. The silence that followed the command must have been deafening, filled with the weight of an impossible decision. Yet, Abraham, with a heavy heart but unwavering resolve, chose obedience. He did not question or argue. He simply rose early the next morning. Questions for the audience. How do you think Abraham felt after hearing God's command? What emotions would be at war inside of him? Why do you think God would choose to test Abraham in such a seemingly cruel way? What was the purpose of this test? Have you ever had to make a decision that felt like a contradiction to your core values or beliefs? How did you navigate that? The journey to Moriah began at dawn. Abraham, with a look of determination etched on his face, prepared the necessary items, wood for the fire, and 2 servants to accompany them. Isaac, a young man of joyful spirit and a heart full of trust, walked alongside his father, completely unaware of the horrifying purpose of their pilgrimage. He saw a father and a son embarking on a holy mission, not realizing that he was the intended sacrifice. The air between them was thick with a silence that spoke volumes. Isaac chattered innocently about the journey, the beautiful scenery, and the purpose of their trip, while Abraham could only offer short, pained responses. For 3 days, they walked. With every step, the physical distance between Abraham's home and the mountain grew, but the emotional distance within him must have felt infinite. He was a father walking his son to his death, an act that went against every fiber of his being. The weight of the wood on Isaac's back was symbolic of the burden on Abraham's heart. He was a patriarch, a leader of faith, now faced with the most excruciating act of obedience. He had to be a father, a priest, and a man of faith all at once, carrying the weight of a divine command that defied human reason. On the 3rd day, the mountain came into view. Abraham saw it clearly, just as God had promised. He turned to his servants and instructed them to stay behind. "Stay here with the donkey," he said. "The boy and I will go up there to worship and then we will come back to you." This statement, in its simplicity, was a profound declaration of Abraham's faith. He did not say, "I will come back to you," but, "We will come back to you." He believed, against all logic and reason, that God would provide a way for Isaac to live. He had faith that even if he had to sacrifice his son, God could and would raise him from the dead. As they began the final ascent, Isaac, ever the inquisitive son, broke the silence. "My father," he said, "the fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" The question was an innocent one, born from a natural curiosity about their worship. It was a question that pierced Abraham's heart, a stark reminder of the horror he was about to face. Abraham's response was a masterclass in faith. He looked at his son, his face a mixture of love and pain, and said, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." It was a statement of profound trust, a declaration that even in the face of the impossible, he believed in God's provision. Questions for the audience. What does Abraham's statement, "We will come back to you," reveal about his faith? Why do you think Abraham didn't explain the situation to Isaac? Was that an act of mercy, or something else? How does the image of Isaac carrying the wood and asking about the lamb change your perspective on the story? They reached the summit, a quiet and desolate place, perfect for the solemn task ahead. Abraham began to build the altar, a silent and methodical process. He arranged the stones, piled the wood, and prepared the ground. With every movement, his heart must have been breaking. Isaac watched, still unaware of the full gravity of the situation. It was a scene of stark, unbearable contrast, a father building an altar for a sacrifice, and a son helping him, completely trusting in his love and guidance. Finally, the moment arrived. Abraham took hold of Isaac, his own son, and bound him. He laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. The act of binding Isaac was an act of both love and obedience. It was a way to ensure that Isaac would not struggle, a heartbreaking mercy for a child who trusted his father completely. Abraham, with tears likely streaming down his face, lifted the knife. His hand trembled, not from fear, but from the immense sorrow and unimaginable love he felt for his son. He was a man prepared to go through with the most difficult act of faith imaginable, to place his trust in God above all else. In that single, breathtaking moment, as the knife was poised to strike, a voice cried out from heaven. "Abraham! Abraham!" The voice was urgent, filled with a divine intervention that came in the nick of time. Abraham, with his heart pounding, looked up. He saw the angel of the Lord, who commanded him, "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." The relief that must have washed over Abraham was instantaneous and overwhelming. His faith had been proven, not just to God, but to himself. He had been willing to give up the most precious thing in his life for the sake of his devotion. As he looked up, he saw a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. God had, as Abraham had declared, provided the lamb for the sacrifice. He took the ram, sacrificed it as a burnt offering in place of his son, and named the place Jehovah-Jireh, which means, "The Lord will provide." The story of Abraham and Isaac is a testament to the power of faith and the nature of God's provision. It's a story that asks us to consider what we would be willing to give up for our deepest beliefs and what it means to trust in a power greater than ourselves, even when that trust is tested to its absolute limits. Questions for the audience. What is the significance of the ram appearing just at the right moment? What does this tell us about God's character? Do you think Abraham's faith would have been as strong if the angel had not intervened? What can the story of Abraham and Isaac teach us about the relationship between faith, obedience, and trust? Following the incredible test on Mount Moriah, Abraham and Isaac returned home, their bond forever changed and deepened. The journey back was not filled with the tense silence of their ascent but with a new understanding and an unspoken gratitude. Isaac now knew the depth of his father's faith and the terrifying reality he had faced. Abraham knew, with a certainty that transcended all doubt, that his God was a God of provision, a God who did not desire human sacrifice but sought a willing and obedient heart. The name of the place, Jehovah-Jireh, "The Lord will provide," became a permanent marker of this pivotal moment, a testament for generations to come. The experience solidified Abraham's role as the patriarch of a great nation. His willingness to sacrifice his most cherished possession was a testament to his complete trust in God's plan, even when that plan was incomprehensible. This act of faith set him apart and made him an example for all who would follow. The covenant God had made with him was reaffirmed and expanded. Because Abraham had not withheld his son, God promised to bless him and his descendants beyond measure. "I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore," the angel of the Lord declared. "Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me." This moment was not just a personal victory for Abraham, it was a foundational event for the entire narrative of faith. The story of Abraham and Isaac became a cornerstone of Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions, teaching a profound lesson about the nature of faith, obedience, and God's ultimate mercy. It is a story that has been contemplated, debated, and retold for thousands of years, each retelling offering new insights into the complexities of human-divine relationships. The years that followed saw the fulfillment of other divine promises. Abraham lived a long and full life, seeing his son Isaac grow into a man and marry Rebekah. He saw the beginnings of the great nation God had promised, a nation built on the foundation of his unwavering faith. The legacy of Abraham was not just in his descendants but in his example, a man who, when asked to give everything, gave without hesitation, trusting that the God of promise was also the God of provision. His name became synonymous with faith itself, the ultimate example of a man who believed in the impossible. Questions for the audience. Asterisk, how do you think the relationship between Abraham and Isaac changed after the events on Mount Moriah? Asterisk, what is the significance of the phrase, "the Lord will provide," for people of faith today? Asterisk, in what ways can Abraham's test be seen as a foreshadowing of future events in religious history? The story of Abraham and Isaac did not end on Mount Moriah. It became a cornerstone of Abraham's legacy and a pivotal moment in the religious history of humanity. The profound trust and obedience displayed by Abraham set a standard for all who would follow his path of faith. His willingness to sacrifice his son, his most precious gift and the very embodiment of God's promise, cemented his reputation not merely as a believer, but as the "father of all who believe." For Isaac, the event would have been an unforgettable and deeply personal crucible. He was no longer just the miracle child but a direct participant in a divine drama. His journey was not a passive one, he willingly allowed himself to be bound and placed on the altar. While Abraham's faith is the central theme, Isaac's trust in his father, and by extension, in the God his father served, is equally profound. He was a symbol of a generation inheriting a faith tested and proven. He would go on to live a life shaped by this event, carrying the memory of his father's love and the reality of God's provision. The legacy of this story extended far beyond the personal lives of Abraham and Isaac. It served as a definitive rejection of human sacrifice, a practice common in the ancient Near East. God's intervention was a clear statement that he did not require the blood of children. Instead, he sought a different kind of sacrifice, the sacrifice of the heart, the relinquishing of one's own will and desires in favor of divine command. The story teaches that true faith isn't about blind adherence to a harsh deity but about a relationship of trust so deep that it endures even the most severe trials. Over centuries, the narrative became a timeless parable. In Jewish tradition, it is known as the Akedah, or the binding, and is read annually on Rosh Hashanah, serving as a reminder of God's mercy and the covenant with Abraham. In Christianity, the sacrifice of Isaac is seen as a prefiguration of the sacrifice of Jesus, with God the Father offering his only Son, and God providing the ultimate Lamb of God for the redemption of humanity. In Islam, the event is revered as a demonstration of Ibrahim's unwavering submission to Allah, celebrated during the festival of Eid al-Adha. The story continues to challenge and inspire. It forces us to confront the limits of our own faith and to ask ourselves what we truly hold most sacred. It is a narrative about a father's love, a son's trust, and a God who provides, a story that resonates with the deepest questions of purpose, obedience, and the meaning of true devotion. Questions for the audience. Asterisk, how does the story of Abraham and Isaac challenge modern ideas about faith, which often focus on personal comfort and reason? Asterisk, what is the significance of the story being interpreted differently across different major religions? What does this say about its universal themes? Asterisk, if you were Isaac, how would you have processed the events on Mount Moriah for the rest of your life? The story of Abraham and Isaac, while profoundly personal, was also a crucial part of a much larger narrative, the story of a nation and a people. The lineage that was secured on Mount Moriah would lead directly to the formation of the Israelites. Isaac, the son who was almost sacrificed, would become the father of Jacob, and Jacob, renamed Israel, would be the father of the 12 tribes. Each of these descendants carried within them the legacy of that single, breathtaking moment of faith. The covenant with Abraham was not a one-time event, it was a living promise that unfolded through generations. The lessons from Moriah shaped the identity of the Jewish people. It taught them that their relationship with God was one of deep trust and obedience, a relationship built on a foundation of a tested and proven faith. The God they worshipped was not a distant, indifferent deity, but one who was actively involved in their lives, who tested them not out of malice, but to strengthen their faith and reveal his own divine character. The story served as a powerful reminder of their unique status as a people chosen not because of their might, but because of the faith of their ancestor, Abraham. The echoes of this story resonated for centuries, becoming a central theme in later biblical narratives. The call to trust God, even when the path is unclear, is a recurring motif throughout the Hebrew Bible. The willingness of Abraham to give up his son foreshadowed the sacrifices of countless prophets and martyrs who would later give their lives for their beliefs. The ram caught in the thicket became a symbol of divine intervention and a reminder that God would always provide a way out of impossible situations for those who trust him. Ultimately, the story of Abraham and Isaac is a powerful and enduring testament to the nature of faith. It teaches that faith is not a comfortable or easy journey. It is a demanding, often frightening, and ultimately transformative experience. It requires us to lay down our own understanding, our own desires, and even our most cherished possessions, and to trust in a wisdom and a love far greater than our own. The test on Mount Moriah was not a test of Abraham's ability to kill his son, but a test of his absolute faith in a God who would, and did, provide. Questions for the audience. How does the story of Abraham and Isaac influence the identity and beliefs of the Jewish people? What are some other stories or events in history that demonstrate a similar kind of tested faith? In what ways can this ancient story still speak to people's personal struggles and challenges today?